Prepara las palomitas. Está a punto de empezar En Sincronía, el podcast hispanoamericano de traducción audiovisual, con Damián Santilli, Blanca Arias Badía y Guillermo Parra.
Les damos la bienvenida al episodio número 46 de En Sincronía, el primer podcast de traducción audiovisual del mundo. Soy Damián Santilli y estoy sincronizado desde Buenos Aires, Argentina, con Blanca Arias Badía en Barcelona y Guillermo Parra en Menorca. Hola Blanca, hola Guille, feliz cuarta temporada.
¡Yujú!
Hola, iba a decir, ¿cómo que episodio 46 sin anunciar bombo y platillo, que es el primero de la temporada 4?
El primero.
Viste, no iba a fallar.
¡Qué emoción, qué emoción!
Estábamos deseando volver. Estoy seguro de que nuestros oyentes estaban esperando que volviéramos. Tengo ahora mismo delante el rap de este año de Spotify y según esto estamos entre los podcasts más escuchados de 619 personas, o sea que esas personas nos estaban echando de menos.
Muy bien,
Wow.
muy bien. 619 personas no tienen en el top 5, sería una cosa así.
Top 10.
Top 10.
Top 5, 476. Y top
¡Apa!
1, 165.
Wow.
Puestos a dar datos.
Yo, creo que aquella persona que descubrimos el otro día, cuyo nombre no sé si queréis ya desvelar, que al parecer nos ha concedido tantísimos minutos de su tiempo,
Super fan.
creo que se va a merecer algún regalito, ¿eh? Tenemos que decir que tenemos acceso a esta información y que vamos a dar regalitos a estos fans tan incondicionales.
Sí, se lo merece.
Es que la gente agarra el podcast y se lo pone una y otra vez, Blanca, ¿entendés? O sea, esto es el
Exacto.
white noise de... Somos el white noise de muchas personas.
Para dormir.
Está muy bien.
Y para la ducha también, nos lo dijeron.
Ah, es verdad.
Para la ducha. No sé.
Nunca se va a olvidar Guillermo del día que alguien le dijo que lo escuchaba en la ducha.
A ver, yo también escucho con eso en la ducha, debo reconocerlo, porque no suele ser podcast, pero bueno, música.
Está muy bien. Bueno, les damos oficialmente entonces la bienvenida a la cuarta temporada del podcast, cuarta temporada que estará auspiciada también por UNA. Vaya un agradecimiento enorme a Wayne Garf y a todo el equipo de UNA por brindarnos este apoyo, por un apoyo que es también un apoyo a la comunidad de traductores independientes, lo cual para nosotros es muy valioso y también hace en gran parte que sea posible que nosotros podamos dedicarle un poco más de tiempo a otros aspectos del podcast, porque si no sería muy complicado, así que gracias a Wayne y a todo el equipo. Y bueno, vamos a contarles que para esta nueva temporada, esta cuarta temporada, tenemos un nuevo cambio de estructura de programa con respecto a las secciones, que en definitiva va a terminar siendo más o menos parecido a como veníamos haciéndolo en cantidad de tiempo, pero no en cantidad de secciones. Lo que vamos a hacer este año es, luego de la primera parte de la entrevista, como hacíamos el año pasado, vamos a tener un solo episodio aparte de las secciones. Hoy comenzamos con Blanca, que ahora nos va a contar enseguida nomás cuál es el tema del día de hoy, pero la idea es que sean también secciones un poquito más largas de cómo era el año pasado, para que podamos desarrollar en profundidad, alguna, o en un poquito más de profundidad, no en profundidad porque tampoco, no van a ser de 20 minutos tampoco, pero la idea es que más o menos sean del doble de tiempo que eran hasta ahora, y también, bueno, que sea un espacio diferente para ahondar en lo que nos interesa particularmente, así que tendremos una sección por episodio, y entonces en el episodio de hoy vamos a tener una sección, bueno, vamos a tener minutos divulgativos, pero primero, antes de que Blanca nos cuente de qué va a tratar su minutos del día de hoy, Guille nos va a contar quién es el entrevistado de nuestro primer episodio y de qué vamos a hablar.
Pues hoy tendremos con nosotros a Jorge Díaz-Cintas. Yo creo que es un nombre que no requiere presentación, además ya ha estado en el podcast, diría que en el episodio 6 de los primeritos invitados que tuvimos. Y va a volver esta vez a hablarnos de un proyecto que él lidera desde hace ya varios años, como comentaba, que es la certificación AVTpro, que ha salido esta misma semana. El lunes 4 de diciembre se ha abierto la primera edición. Hay 2 semanas para presentarse a esta certificación. Y pues va a venir a hablarnos un poco de cómo ha evolucionado también el proyecto desde que tuvimos a Serenela Masida, que vino a hablarnos de él ya en el mes de abril, a finales de abril. O sea que han pasado unos meses, la cosa ha evolucionado y viene a contarnos en qué sentido ha cambiado o cómo ha ido de alguna forma implementándose las ideas que tenían, porque algunas no habían acabado de cobrar forma. Y luego también viene, y esto es una parte importante, a responder a dudas, preguntas, críticas también. Es importante. No podemos obviar que ha habido críticas desde que se anunció la iniciativa en redes, con lo cual él va a venir también a dar la cara y va a venir a compartir su punto de vista como líder del proyecto y a explicarnos todas las cosas que le preguntemos, que son muchas, no serán pocas. y nada, bueno, espero que disfrutéis.
Para que se saquen todas las dudas posibles, habidas y por haber, y encima después le pueden seguir escribiendo si tienen más preguntas. Bueno, luego de la primera parte de la entrevista, como venimos haciendo, tenemos las secciones. Entonces, como adelantaba, Blanca, contanos con qué vamos a arrancar en esta cuarta temporada en Minutos Divulgativos.
Bueno, has generado mucho hype diciendo 2 o 3 veces a ver si os iba a contar de qué iba, así que espero
para que lo escuchen sí o sí.
Exacto. Bueno, a ver, escuchar a Jorge Díaz-Cintas es muy interesante, así que si alguien se salta mi sección, no se lo tendré en cuenta, pero a mí me haría ilusión que la gente la escuchara. ¿Por qué? Porque, nos ha pasado una cosa que en realidad creo que es la ilusión de cualquier persona que se dedica a la investigación y a la docencia, que es que un sector de la industria, en este caso una plataforma que agrupa a artistas que hacen artes de calle, este tipo de artes que son callejeros, que tienen lugar en espacios públicos como espectáculos de danza, música, nos escribió para pedirnos que hiciéramos un decálogo de aspectos que hay que tener en cuenta de accesibilidad para hacer accesibles este tipo de espectáculos. Y entonces nos pusimos manos a la obra con la red AccessCat, que como ya contamos en episodios anteriores del podcast, es una red de transferencia que trata cuestiones de accesibilidad, y redactamos un documento de decálogo con Ana Matamala, Carme Mangirón y Estela Unsins, y con la colaboración de algunas entidades del tercer sector que trabajan por la inclusión de personas sordas, de personas con discapacidad intelectual y con usuarios de la accesibilidad más en general. Y hemos generado este documento que está publicado en acceso abierto. Entonces, en mi sección os lo voy a contar punto por punto, este decálogo.
Los 12 puntos, quieres decir, ¿no?
Pues mira, ¿sabes qué? Hay 2 de regalo, hemos puesto, y un par de ideas más, y tenemos 2 más, así que hay 12 en realidad. Pero sí, como decálogo son 10 y luego hay 2 extras.
Dios mío. Bueno,
Dios mío.
Es que lo nuestro no son los números, ya está claro. Bueno.
Hay que tomártelo a broma, hombre. Sentido del humor.
Bueno, bien. Listo, hecha la introducción entonces de este episodio, esperemos que lo disfruten, que presten atención bien a cada una de las cosas que explica Jorge para luego poder tomar y tener una opinión informada, vamos a decirlo de esa manera, sobre la certificación AVTpro, porque realmente vamos al detalle en cada uno de los puntos, así que no nos podemos quejar de que tal o cual información no está disponible o no la sabemos, porque a partir de esta publicación de este episodio está, creo que casi todo resuelto. Comenzamos nomás con la primera parte de la entrevista a Jorge Díaz-Cintas. En Sincronía Podcast está auspiciado por Una, la mejor herramienta de traducción audiovisual del mercado, 100% en línea. En su suite encontraremos programas para crear, traducir, revisar, transcribir, convertir, codificar, pegar y comparar subtítulos. Además, cuenta con una aplicación para audiodescripción y un sistema de gestión de proyectos a la medida de cada empresa del medio. Su interfaz web es muy intuitiva y fácil de usar y nos permite trabajar como profesionales de la manera más sencilla. Además, podemos optar por distintos métodos de licencias, desde una semana hasta un año. También encontrarán en su web el programa educativo de Una para enseñar la herramienta en sus clases de la universidad, y de Pool, una base de datos creada para que se encuentren las empresas y los traductores audiovisuales. Pueden ingresar en una.net para probar el software gratis durante 4 semanas, mejorar su productividad y empezar a trabajar como profesionales hoy mismo. Y también recuerden que gracias a este patrocinio del podcast pueden acceder a un 10% de descuento en cualquier compra que hagan en la tienda de Una. Solo tienen que ingresar el código ENSINCRO10 en el carrito antes de pagar y listo.
And here we are with Jorge Díaz-Cintas. Hello, Jorge. How are you?
Hello, hi. Good afternoon. How are you doing? All is well in London?
Well, it's not so great here in Menorca. It's been raining all day. I couldn't play paddle this morning, but apart from that...
Oh,
I couldn't play paddle. I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
Tragic.
It's been for me.
well, try swimming with so much rain.
Yeah, that would make more sense, definitely. Well, you're joining us today because this week has been key for the AVTpro initiative. We interviewed Serenella a few months ago, back in April, and well, she introduced us to the AVTpro certification. We're going to go into that as well, but we promised that the moment the certification launched, we would invite you back to get us up to date with your progress and how everything's going. So here we are, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm also very excited. The certification was actually launched yesterday, so it's very timely and it's been a lot of work behind this initiative, and I'll be delighted to just, address any questions that you might have.
Well, I think we can go straight to the point and start with a little bit of the context of the certification. What is AVTpro as an entity, and where does the idea for a subtitling certification come from?
Yeah, well, AVTpro is a certification, a professional certification, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about this later on, but I would like to emphasize the aspect of being professional rather than academic. And it was created as a sort of response to what has happened in many other fields of translation, specialized translation, interpreting even. You find lots of professional certifications out there, but sadly we didn't have anything similar to that in audiovisual translation, and particularly in subtitling. And it was an idea of raising the profile, the visibility of the industry, and to make sure that it is within the industry that people get that recognition rather than outside of the industry. So that was the main drive behind the whole initiative.
Because one of the impressions that I have is that in the industry, companies and many professionals don't believe just having a bachelor's degree or a master's degree is enough to filter or to decide which translators to work with. So is that somehow related to the idea of launching this certification?
Well, as you know, I am primarily an academic, and I've been teaching this field since the mid-90s. And I've seen how the industry has operated for all these years. And as you mentioned rightly, very few companies, if any, will take you on your academic certifications. And they will most likely ask you to sit one of their tests, entry tests, onboarding tests, to make sure that you are up to standard on the topic. You might get lots of people that get certified with masters, with bachelors, with doctoral programs, but it doesn't really necessarily mean that they are properly qualified for what the industry needs. And that gap is always existed, not just in our field, in audiovisual translation, but in many other areas of translation and in many other areas of professions. In medicine, you have to do exams before you enter and work in a hospital. In law, they will also be asking you to sit some exams and doing other things, at least in the UK, and in many other professions. And there are bodies like in the UK's Ofqual, which is an office of qualifications, understanding that qualifications are necessary for the professions and that they are a sign of maturity, is professions that are able to self-regulate and able to acknowledge what is quality or what is good standards in the field of expertise. And that, sadly, and I am an academic, and it doesn't mean that academic certifications or academic qualifications are bad, but it is true that on occasions is not the best credential to enter the industry, because they don't know whether in that particular university it was more theoretical than practical, whether they were exposed to certain technology or new workflows or whatever. And hence, as I said earlier on, the existence since day one of these income tests, entry tests and professional tests that companies will have for the newcomers.
Mhm. As a teacher myself, I need to say that I've been tutoring students from bachelor's degree and the master's degree, and you can say that even though they all graduated from that title, they all have the same expertise in subtitling or in any specific field. So that kind of makes sense to me as well.
Mm.
So you were saying that, well, you're an academic, of course. I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast knows you somehow or has heard of you. But you're saying that this is a professional certification. So who is involved in the initiative? Who is behind this and has a say in how the certification has been designed?
Yeah, as we mentioned, it's been launched just recently, but it comes from a long time ago. We've been working on this easily over 2 years, if not a bit longer. And the initial meetings, we had several meetings with stakeholders from companies, also from associations, national and international audiovisual translation associations, independent professional subtitlers that weren't particularly linked to any of the associations, and also a few academics to see what we felt was the best way to create a certification in our field. We've been changing some of the angles, though the main architecture was decided in these meetings, and what you can see now on the website and the several tasks that people need to complete before obtaining the certification were all in common agreement with the stakeholders that I mentioned to you. The main sort of drive behind this, because I guess one of the problems why the certification hasn't existed before is that it is very technically challenging. You know, other types of certification to do a translation, you don't need much technology. For subtitling, you need a platform that would allow you to do subtitles, that would allow you to do the marking of those subtitles and so on. And I think that's what is being withholding some of the potential initiatives in this field. So eventually we had the help and support of UNA, which are a developing company. They're not a language service provider, but rather manufacturers of technology. And they are the ones that have been helping with all the technical dimension and to create a platform that suited our needs rather than the other way around. So it's not that we've created a certification that fits the technology that is available, but we have created or we have modified some of the technology that is available to allow for this certification to be conducted in the way that we want to do this. And for this, we have, as you know, we've started with the FIGs, French, Italian, German, and Spanish, all from English. And everybody behind this work are all professionals. So they've been working on guidelines, on activities, tasks with their experience and expertise in the field. So that's what I meant by the professionals. We can discuss later if you want as well, the type of style guides that we're using and so on.
Mm-hmm, of course.
But that's the angle. The examiners as well. I won't be the examiner or academics of my profile. I already do lots of examining and certify people doing MAs and PhDs and BAs and so on. The idea here it is people that are doing subtitles day in and day out, and they know exactly what the industry needs and wants and how the translation should be created for that particular environment. So all the examiners have a minimum of 10, 12 years experience. And on average, we were calculating the other day, is closer to 16, 17 years. So that's what I meant. And that's what I would like to reinforce all the time, that this is a professional certification and not an academic. We're not competing with universities or with higher education centers.
One of the main criticisms, so to speak, in the last couple of weeks since the certification was announced had to do with the price and with the fact that some translators doubted that it could be useful to them. So to reply to that, how would you say the certification can be useful to a specific translator that's been certified?
Yeah, as with any other type of certification, it is a currency that you can use in exchange of conversation with people. It is a way of you presenting yourself in a way that is going to be better than your competition. And you probably can do it with certain clients, and maybe you cannot do it with other clients because they might not want to listen to that. And particularly at the very beginning, I'm very aware that this is the very beginning, and we cannot expect from something that is being launched a day ago to be creating dramatic changes in the industry. It will have to be something that progressively gets established in the industry, and then having a certification of this caliber will show you in a better light when you're discussing your rates, when you're discussing your jobs with companies that we might want to prefer to work with you rather than with somebody else that hasn't gone through the filter of other professionals ratifying and acknowledging the quality of their work. I know that it's been this debate in social media in the sense that, I'd like a certification so that I can get paid better. So do I. And so would I like my students to also get that certification will grant them more money. But the reality is that even when they do an MA, I cannot guarantee that they're going to get better payment than anybody else. This is something that you use in your negotiation. By default, it doesn't mean that you're going to get paid more. It is if we manage to get this as a sort of level of recognition that certain companies, and not all of them, but certain companies will prefer to look for quality and will prefer to work with people that they can feel have got that experience, that's when you come into the equation. And that's when you can show that you can actually deliver to that standard because you've been qualified by professionals, but people within the industry to prove that point. So that's what I think it becomes important. Ideally, what we would like to happen in the future and what I think might switch or move the emphasis would be if some of the content creators were also backing the initiative. And then you've got the likes of all these corporations creating lots of films and TV series and productions, and they will support an initiative of this caliber to say that they actually would like their translators or their works to be translated by people that can show their level of professionalism. And that, I think, will mean giving much more leverage to the translators that they possibly have now.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I'm now thinking about certain clients that are used to working with specific translators and how those translators are in a position that doesn't correspond to most of the market. They can, not impose, but they can negotiate their own rates, and those are much higher than market rates. And that's always because the end client wants to work with those translators. Of course, that's an exception. That's not the rule right now. I'm not saying that having the certification, you would be necessarily in that position, but that's definitely an advantage.
And I think it's moving in, it helps us as an industry or as a group of professionals to move in that direction. It was the AVTE survey that they did a couple of years ago, or maybe even only a year ago. And one of the main discoveries is that the people that get paid better are because they negotiate better their rates. Mm-hmm. And it is in that negotiation, how do you negotiate? For some people, it might be very simple because they've been in the industry for 30 years and they don't need to negotiate much more than that. But for some other people that have started not long ago, it might be much more challenging, and they might be equally valid and professional in their translations, but they don't have that sort of leverage because they don't have the experience, they don't have the expertise. And having something like this will be another element that they could put forward as proving that they are much more than just a name or a number, but also that their work has been ratified and confirmed by people from the industry.
And do you think that translators that have been working in the field for maybe 20 years or longer than that, do you think that they'll be interested in taking the certification, considering that they are already in an advantageous position? Or perhaps at the beginning, are you expecting more beginners to take the test? Or how do you think people will react to it?
Yeah, it's always a guesswork in here, and you never really know how people are going to respond. I've done some courses that are for beginners, and then I discovered that there are people with lots of years of experience attending the courses, and I wonder, well, probably you didn't need to come if you already know all that. But some people are, curious and they want to learn more or just find out or reconfirm what they know. So in that sense, I don't know whether some of the people that have been in the industry for a long time might want to add something to their portfolio. To be honest, in my opinion, if you already have your working life solved, if you've got your clients that are responsible, that you're happy with, I don't really see what the point might be for adding more to your portfolio. And that will be a very, very personal decision that I will take myself. I've been in education for about 27 years now. or even more. And I don't think I will be running to get a certification to be a teacher. I think I've proved it already over my professional career.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, it might well be that some company that is extraordinary might want people to prove differently what they can do. And then a certification of this nature might be of help for me to do that. But I think that most likely the interest will come, at least at the beginning, from people that might not have all that experience and it's difficult for them to prove their worth. And having this might show them in a different light when compared to people at the same level without any sort of professional certification.
But you would say that this is a certification for everyone in any case.
It is totally.
Because I can have a degree and I can have a master's or a PhD and I might want to continue to study. So I think that it's personal, like you said, but it's not a certification that is excluding anyone. I think that everyone could be interested in this.
Yes, totally.
Because there are other examples. I don't know if you've taken cases like the ATA case or other associations as a way of preparing this certification as well. But there are other cases in which, if, for instance, in my case, I've been working for 17 years. I'm not an ATA certified translator, but if I wanted to become one, I would have to take an exam. So I might want to be certified by ATA. So I think is it safe to say that this is for everyone?
Totally. It is open to anyone. Well, anyone that works in the languages that we're offering now. We're offering only 4 languages because we needed to start at some point. I'm happy to confirm that we're going to be delivering other languages, and we've already got another set of 4 languages that will be available in the second round of exams. So the idea is that we'll be expanding in languages, but it is clearly open to anyone. And as you mentioned, you've got people that have got lots of experience and they want to do the certification for the ATA, or they might want to do it for the CIOL in the UK, or for the BDU in Germany, or for many other associations around the world that have got their professional certifications, and nobody will stop them. I also get people with lots of years of experience in the translation industry that come and do our MA in London so that they can add something else, or they can just have it as a sort of personal challenge. They never did anything similar and they want to do it. So yes, there are many motivations behind. What I probably wanted to say at the beginning is that I'm not seeing this as a compulsory element for everyone. And I think that was part of the outcry in social media, that some people, well, now I need to have another one, otherwise blah, blah, blah. No, you don't need to have another one. And if you are satisfied where you are now, if you can prove, or if the way you prove your worth is understood by the industry and you're getting the jobs that you like and you are getting the clients that you like, then that's perfectly okay. I don't see why you need to change that. But it is, if you want to look into new possibilities or opportunities, that may be one option that will open doors that until now weren't opened, or at which it was difficult to compete.
I remember a conversation a few years ago with Alison Smith from Netflix.
Yep.
It was at the Languages in the Media, and she was saying very clearly that they didn't really care about translators' experience because to them that didn't mean anything. They were as clear as that. That's not the LSPs. That was Netflix saying that, you have to prove that you can do what you're saying you can do. And that's one of the reasons why they launched Hermes. So I think we can somehow relate it to this initiative.
Yes, it's not just Netflix. It is most companies. And this leaves me and most of my colleagues in academia in a funny position. What are we doing? That we're not trusted by the industry, and the industry feels that they need to check what is coming out. And I understand the pressure in there. And that's a reality that we can probably try and ignore and say, okay, fine, I've got my MA in audiovisual translation. Why do I need to have anything else? And fair and square, there are many courses that are available that people are doing on how to translate for comics, or how to translate for humor, or how to translate forced narratives, or how to do other things. And people are doing those courses and they don't seem to be complaining, or they don't seem to be thinking that is not going to take them anywhere. So it's another way of adding to your portfolio as a professional. Certifications are very common. We've been mentioning in many other walks of life. And that's what I think is the reality, that, the likes of Netflix or Disney or many language service providers are going to look at your CV. They might think, okay, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Here you have, do this test and then prove your worth. And that's what it is, the situation now. What we want to do with a certification of this nature, if it's understood correctly and gets the visibility that I think it deserves, is that rather than having to do 15 different onboarding tests for 15 different companies, you might just have to do one certification that proves that you can do it, and then you can hit the ground running when you join a company. And they're not going to be testing you ad infinitum every time you go to a different company. That's what it could be, another way of streamlining the workflows and making a much more agile environment for people to start working straight away, and for companies not having to be testing all the time, creating tests, getting some of their best resources to mark those tests and giving feedback to the people, which sometimes they don't. And again, that creates some of the frustration that some people voice in social media and so on. I spent, I don't know how many hours doing this test. I never heard back from them. That's what we're trying to break from and try to create another professional environment that is kinder to everyone and more agile.
Damián?
So the thing that you're saying, to be super clear, is that we are all saying, and we know this is the case, right? It doesn't matter if you have a BA, an MA, or 5 MAs. If you want to work for Netflix or for whatever, you would need to pass a test. So what are you expecting to be the main difference with this certification? I mean, if the companies are saying, I don't care all the academic background that you have, and if they're going to see, oh, okay, but you do have the AVTpro certification, so we don't need to test you. So what's the key aspect there? And you're expecting, is it the collaboration of companies in the creation of the exam? Is it another factor? What do you think it is, the difference there?
Yeah, the key difference in here is sort of developing a level of trust that will allow all the main stakeholders to believe in what others are doing. Now, what is clear now is that the industry is still not really embracing people coming from educational backgrounds straight away, and they're coming with all these exams that they will have to do. Clearly, that is costing them time, it's costing them money, it's costing them resources. They have to be changing their tests regularly if they want to make them meaningful to people. They might be testing all people in the same manner. And we know that the subtitles that are done for the Scandinavian countries are different to the ones that are done in Spain or are done in Greece or in other parts of the world. But it's too time-consuming, it's too onerous for companies to be going in that direction. With this type of certification, what we're trying to do is to target the certification to different languages. We're not testing everyone the same way. People that are working in French will be expected to do certain things as they do in the French system, as opposed to somebody doing the test in German when they do it differently for their subtitles. The guidelines that we're using are not the same guidelines as Netflix or any other company. They've been created in specific cases for those languages, and also using or getting inspiration in most of the cases from the style guides that come from the National Associations of Audiovisual Translation. And what we're trying to get in here is if the companies trust this initiative, and so far some of them have been putting the money so that we can develop what we want to develop. And I want to make it very clear, in no case whatsoever, we've been instructed to do one thing or another. We got together, we were about a group of 20 people, and decided that it was going to be task number 1, this content. Task number 2, we'll test this. Task number 3, we'll test whatever else. And everybody was happy. Some people weren't happy with certain things, but agreed that it made sense to keep everybody else happy. And that was the decision that we were taking in that certification. If that certification now proves credible by people in the industry, then that will resolve the issue of having to be testing newcomers all the time. It will be a feeling of the industry believing not the academics in this case, but professionals. I told you all the examiners are professionals. They're not academics. They are people that do nothing but subtitles virtually every day of their lives, and they've been doing so for about 20 years, most of them. So that is the idea of creating, okay, trust us as an industry, as a group of professionals within that industry, and let's have a dialogue and a discussion on how we can improve things into the future with presenting you with the best people and then other discussions. I think we need a big discussion, and we've been going in that direction for many years now on what are the working conditions and what are the levels of satisfaction in translation in general, and in my case, which is what bothers me more, is audiovisual translation and subtitling. And this is, I think, one step in that direction of communication and dialogue. We cannot resolve everything in one go, but I think by having these companies engaging, discussing, talking, and bringing in that element of credibility to the certification will help us, and I hope so, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this, will help us to work into the future of a profession that will be sustainable and that people will be happier with what we are doing and working with different clients. Are there bad clients in audiovisual? Of course, as they are bad translators, bad supermarkets, bad universities, bad restaurants, and bad everything. But we need to also see who are the best ones and how can we also reach to those best ones and how those best ones can also trust us. I say, okay, fine. Yes, with this certification, I trust you. Otherwise, I'm sorry, I'm not trusting anyone. I'm starting from scratch and we are testing everybody coming here. I'm sorry that was a very long question answering many other angles, but I hope it just sort of leaves a bit clear the ethos of the whole certification.
Yeah. And you've mentioned a couple of things, somehow related to some of the concerns as well, coming from translators, which has to do with money. And people are worried or are criticizing in a way that, yes, if you take 15 tests, 15 unpaid tests, by the way, to try to work for all those LSPs, and you're saying that this can be somehow replaced with the certification, so you're avoiding that process. It's much less frustrating. You receive feedback. But in the original case where you took 15 tests, it was the LSPs taking care of that internally. So they take care of any expenses coming from the test. And people were wondering where the price for the certification came from. What is it going to be spent on? And what's the reason for that price point?
Yeah. I know paying for something is never something that you like, but sometimes it's also a way of showing that things are worth it. I won't be mentioning too many things outside of what I've been doing right now with these certifications, but we know of other attempts of doing something similar that sort of collapsed because they were free. Anybody could do the test and they could do 20 times the same test if they wanted to until they pass somehow the test. So we were aware of some prior initiatives that weren't that successful and needed to see what could we do to make sure that this was respectable, but without taking advantage of people taking the exams. So we did look at other certifications available in the industry. We've mentioned them all already, the ATA, the CIOL, the ITI, the BDU, and so on. And all of them virtually charge double the amount that we're charging for what I believe is less onerous in terms of marking. I'm not saying that it's easy to mark a written text, but you don't need the technology, you don't need the infrastructure that you do need to do a thorough work with subtitling and the technology that you need. So we needed to invest on things like that. And we needed to also bring the professionals that will be able to give and to lend their credibility to the certification itself. It was clear in my mind from the very beginning that volunteering is not something that I wanted to do in this particular instance. I've done some volunteering when I want to, but not when I'm forced to do it. And I didn't want anybody involved in this certification to volunteer. I wanted people to be paid their worth and paid for something that they believe in, and they need to pay their bills and their money. So we've got $275 that we get from the certification, but we need to pay 2 examiners. Everything is going to be done by 2 examiners at least, and they need to be paid. So deduct whatever you can pay to those examiners, plus, unlike some of the exams that already exist, every time that we've got a round of exams, we've got different combinations of videos. So chances that 2-3 people will land on the same videos will be very, very slim. And they will be constantly changed, constantly updated, and combined in different ways so that people don't get to know the exams inside out. That also brings in the need of professionals choosing those videos, creating, in the case of working from templates, those templates for those that we're doing for creation, making sure that the exams are of the right level of difficulty, that they will be okay, and then with the marking. So it was very, very clear from the beginning that it wasn't an income generating initiative. The money is being reverted back to the professionals that are involved in the initiative. And this is a non-profit venture whereby all the money is coming back into this. Whether it is to expand on other languages, whether it is to, as I said, revisit the exams and the combinations all the time, and even reformulate some of the tasks if we think that in a couple of years, 3-4 years, things have changed in the industry in such a manner that some of the tasks that we are now testing participants on are not valid any longer, and then maybe we should be looking at other initiatives or another areas that we should be thinking of, because it makes sense for professionals and for the industry. So that's where the money is going in. And as I said earlier on, we're just going is half what it was before. But yes, I understand that before some people might prefer to do 15 exams and not pay anything. That's something that we did consider. We also considered to do it for free. But again, it will be unsustainable if you did it that way, because who is going to be working for free? Professionals that are already in high demand in the industry, and that, they wouldn't see probably the worth of just doing this. And we really want this to be credible. And I think I've repeated that word a bit too often today. But it's not a matter that I'll do it 7 times until it sort of clicks and I get it. It's more, we're telling people, okay, please think about it before you do it. Prepare yourself. We're doing a little taster at the beginning to see, do you have the basics, really the basics to proceed? And if you don't, maybe you should give yourself more time to just consider whether you want to do this. So we're not doing this to just get the money out of people straight away so that we can build up any profits or benefits for the industry. The companies that are supporting us, they're giving their money to the initiative. They're not getting paid. The money that is generated doesn't go back to those companies. It stays within AVTpro. Again, I'll reiterate that as many times as needed, because that is the way it is. And you don't need to be a mathematician, just calculate. It's 275. Think about the people involved and think about the new versions that you have to do, and then you'll see where the money or the benefits can be, which will be very, very slim.
Jorge, one thing that I just wanted to make clear, whenever you take an exam for a company, it's not free, because you're investing your time in that.
I know. Of course.
If in the course of a year you took 10 exams, so with that it's at least 10 hours. So if you calculate and however you want to earn per work hour, then
I know.
Nothing free. You're not paying for it, but you're paying it with your time,
Exactly. And again, you've got lots of courses, little courses that, I don't know, sometimes how much worth they might bring to you. I'm not criticizing anyone, and I'm not going to mention any names, but there are many other things that people are quite happy to spend the money, and they're not criticized or they're not queried. I understand why people will be raising these issues, and I'm quite happy to explain as best as I can. But this is something that, as you said, how do you quantify the money or the time that you spend and how much it's costing you? And we know that there are hidden costs that perhaps don't come as clear as the fee that you're paying, but it's also in time. It might also be, and some of the things that we know, asking some of the professionals involved, is that for some of the tests that you do, not only do you waste your time, but also you don't get any feedback whatsoever. So they don't come back to you ever again. So you feel that you've wasted time with no support, no feedback to say, okay, do I need to improve somewhere? Do I need to do something else? Do I need to just look at something from a different angle? Nothing whatsoever. So again, that is something that you are missing out and that you don't usually get in some of these tests, and that the certification is avoiding. And people will get feedback and will get an evaluation form with comments on their performance and so on.
May I just jump in to add a comment here? I think it's very interesting that the initiative is self-sustained and that at least the AVTpro team thinks of it as a non-profit initiative. But I think it is also very clear that the companies involved, and I'm not saying this is something bad at all, but I think it's clear that for them, they are making huge profits because they don't need to manage all of these exams and all of this time that we're talking about now, which is money for particular professionals. And of course, it's also time and money for companies. And now all of this management goes to AVTpro and they don't need to work on this for recruitment, which they typically, in many cases, already subcontract. So my point is, to what extent are companies now being part of this team? Because on the website, you can see the AVTpro team, but it is not clear, I think, who is doing what. So to what extent will companies actually be involved in the management of all of this information, all of these answers to exams and so on? I don't think this information is, at least to me, clear on the website. And I think that's some of the concerns that some people may have, right? The extent to which this kind of certification actually is very good for companies, and that's why they are sponsoring it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's bad, again.
No, I think you just nailed it on the head. And this idea that, of course, is also of validity to the companies. Otherwise, why would they invest money?
Exactly. I think that's positive.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, you invest money because you see that it's going to be a return, and that hopefully that return is going to be positive. So yes, if I can now trust that the people behind the exams are professionals, that I probably will be reaching out to them. If I am a small company and I don't have the support or I don't have the resources to have an in-house team that are going to be dealing with the certification, then I'll probably have to externalize this and pay some people to help me with marking some of the languages, with creating the videos or looking for the right videos to be testing what I want to be tested, and possibly paying some of the professionals that are going to be doing the AVTpro. So if they can try, if they can believe, if they can trust these examiners, the people behind the AVTpro, of course, for them it's going to be much quicker. They don't need to be rapidly onboarding people, testing them, but actually these people are already prepared. I can just give them a piece of work and then see how they react, and I can trust somehow who's been behind, acknowledging their level of quality and so on. Who does what in that sort of tripartite division that you find on the website? There is the editorial team or the main team, which is basically the people that put some money into the equation, with some of the people that have been instigating the development. And among those people, with a team of other colleagues that we've been working on making sure that there is similarity when it needs to be among languages, but also disparity when it needs to be. We don't want everybody to do the subtitles the way that any company does, but the way that in that particular region of the world is being done. So we need a little bit of an oversight, and those are the people in that team. The ones from the companies, what they did, and it was very welcomed and very appreciated, was they shared some of their material that they were using for testing to show us, okay, this is what we are testing now and what we're using. We would like something similar, at least, if not better, for us to be involved in here. So they were giving us some ideas, apart from the funding, some ideas on what is it that they needed. And then the rest of people that you will see in the advisory board, which is the one at the bottom, will be the people that have been giving advice on certain dimensions. When we didn't know how to do certain things, when we didn't know how to reach out for people that we might need in particular languages, they've been helping with general information. And it's the team, the AVTpro team, that have been working behind the scenes on the actual tasks, on the activities, and developing all the material that is going to be used in the different activities. And I have to mention here that not everybody was willing or happy to have their information displayed on the website. I hope that in the future that might change, but there are more people involved than you can see in there. And I'm not saying this for effect, it's just the reality that there are more people involved. So I can proudly say, and I will repeat it, and I will explain to anyone that nobody, absolutely no company or nobody in particular has decided what the structure is of the certification. It was a consensual agreement, including people representing AVTE, the European Association for Audiovisual Translators, that were at some meetings, and that's when we took the decision of doing the tasks that we've done. Then the relationship changed. I fully agree why some people might not want to have their names linked to other names. That's a personal decision or a corporate decision on occasions, and that is, by all means, their prerogative and their right. But we didn't come up with anything in the certification that is, we have to do this because the companies want, or we have to do this because the associations want, or we have to do this because the professionals or the academics want. We discuss it. Associations were more in favor of certain things. Companies were more in favor of certain things. But in the end, all the people in those pictures that you find on the website were in agreement. And that's why they kept their pictures there, because they were involved privy to some of these conversations and the architecture of the certification. So that's the way it works and the implication of the people.
I had a follow-up question, but I think we're going to ask you more about the design of the exam, and maybe I can ask you later. So
Sure.
Thank you.
No worries.
I think it's a good moment to take a break because now we need to listen to you, Blanca, to your Minutos divulgativos.
You need to listen to me.
Yes, it's your section. So we're going to take a break, a short break, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
En este podcast no nos gusta que la investigación sobre traducción audiovisual y accesibilidad se quede guardada en un cajón. Empiezan los minutos divulgativos con Blanca Arias Badía.
Hola, empieza una temporada nueva de Minutos Divulgativos y estoy muy contenta de compartir con vosotros una novedad que tenéis disponible en acceso abierto, que es el decálogo Access Cat para la accesibilidad de las artes de calle, de esas artes que tienen lugar en espacios públicos, como espectáculos de danza o musicales o teatrales. Es un documento de transferencia del conocimiento que he redactado en colaboración con Ana Matamala, Carme Mangirón y Estela Onsins del grupo Transmedia Catalunya, y también con la ayuda de 3 asociaciones sin ánimo de lucro. Son Fundació, que se dedica a las personas con discapacidad intelectual, la Asociación Catalana para la Promoción de la Accesibilidad y la Federación de Personas Sordas de Cataluña. Es un documento que, como su nombre indica, tiene 10 consejos sobre cómo hacer accesibles los festivales y las actuaciones que tienen lugar en la calle. Y lo que voy a hacer en esta sección es irlos presentando uno por uno. El primer paso es recordar que la accesibilidad es para todo el mundo. Podemos pensar en medidas, teniendo en cuenta el diseño universal, que vayan a ser buenas para el público en general. No tenemos por qué centrarnos en las personas con discapacidad. Por ejemplo, si tenemos una buena acústica del lugar donde se vaya a desarrollar el espectáculo o el festival, o una buena visibilidad de los actores y actrices que participen, será perfecto para todos los perfiles de público. Igualmente, no hay que perder de vista que para las personas con discapacidad la accesibilidad es especialmente importante, y en ese sentido sí que recomendamos que si se ofrece algún tipo de ventaja a colectivos con discapacidad, como por ejemplo estar más cerca de donde tenga lugar la acción, siempre se garantice esta misma ventaja a las personas que acompañan a las personas con discapacidad. El segundo consejo que damos en el decálogo es acercarse al público. No es posible hacer un festival o una actuación accesible sin tener en cuenta las necesidades del público y muy especialmente las del público con discapacidad. Recomendamos, aparte de acercarnos a usuarios particulares con discapacidad, acudir a asociaciones, porque las asociaciones tienen visiones consensuadas sobre las necesidades de las personas con discapacidad, y tener en cuenta su experiencia y de esta forma ir más allá de gustos personales de una persona o de otra va a ser sin duda un paso hacia la calidad de los servicios de accesibilidad que hayamos promovido en el festival o en la actuación. El tercer consejo que damos es familiarizarse con las normas nacionales e internacionales. Además del contacto directo con los usuarios, hay que estar siempre pendiente de qué normas establecidas hay en materia de accesibilidad, pues por ejemplo del tipo normas UNE, normas ISO, para asegurarnos de que cumplimos con los parámetros de calidad que se fijan en estas normas. También es importante fijarnos siempre en que estos estándares de calidad se apliquen en toda la cadena de accesibilidad, de la que hablaré dentro de un momentito. El cuarto punto que recomendamos es tener en cuenta la accesibilidad desde el principio. Siempre tendrá un coste mayor intentar hacer adaptaciones o mejoras una vez que ya esté diseñada la actuación o el festival, así que si podemos recordarla desde el comienzo es mejor. El quinto consejo es recordar siempre que la accesibilidad no se ofrece de forma aislada, sino que es parte de una cadena. Tenemos que pensar en el recorrido completo de los usuarios cuando queramos ofrecer un festival o actuación accesible. Tenemos que tener en cuenta que estos usuarios tienen una necesidad, después de esa necesidad se informan acerca de cómo van a satisfacerla, pues en el caso que nos ocupa sería una necesidad de ocio. Entonces estos canales de información también tienen que ser accesibles, es importantísimo. Luego, efectivamente, llegan a la actuación y cómo la valoran. a la hora de valorarla podemos hablar con ellos directamente, podemos enviarles cuestionarios, hay distintas formas de hacerlo. Nos tenemos que asegurar también de que haya accesibilidad. Por ejemplo, si una persona sorda signante nos quiere dar feedback sobre una actuación, será importante promover que tenga la opción de hablar en lengua de signos, ya sea pues lengua de signos catalana, lengua de signos española, lengua de señas argentina, para que nos dé ese feedback también en ese momento final. Recomendamos tener, en los casos en los que sea posible, una persona de referencia para temas de accesibilidad que se encargue de toda la gestión de comunicación con usuarios finales, especialmente con los usuarios con discapacidad, y de recoger este feedback al final de las actuaciones. Otra recomendación, la sexta, es ofrecer acceso en formatos múltiples. La personalización hoy es un aspecto clave en cuestiones de accesibilidad, por lo tanto, siempre que sea posible, a lo mejor será a través de dispositivos móviles, ofrezcamos el consumo de las actuaciones con o sin audiodescripción, con sobretítulos o sin sobretítulos. Por ejemplo, si es una instalación multimedia más visual, con contraste de colores o sin, con posibilidad de hacer pausas o no, etc. Otra cosa que es muy importante es velar por la calidad de los proveedores. La accesibilidad comunicativa en algunos países todavía está muy poquito desarrollada y en general se puede afirmar que tiene un recorrido más corto que la accesibilidad física. Por lo tanto, recomendamos encarecidamente acudir a asociaciones que estén informadas sobre proveedores con experiencia en accesibilidad comunicativa antes de contratar los servicios que vayamos a ofrecer en nuestro festival o en nuestra actuación, para asegurarnos también, para velar por esa calidad de la que hemos ido hablando a lo largo del decálogo. La octava medida que proponemos es ser conscientes de las posibilidades y de las limitaciones de las automatizaciones. No hay que cerrarse en banda en absoluto a la tecnología y a la automatización, pero sí que tenemos que hacer un uso inteligente, un uso responsable de la automatización. Ya sabemos, porque en sincronía lo hemos comentado varias veces, que la subtitulación automática a veces, esta que está generada por reconocimiento del habla, puede presentar algunos errores, pues en el caso que nos ocupa podría ser en nombres de personajes de un espectáculo, o también una audiodescripción lanzada automáticamente podría solaparse más con momentos de diálogo que una audiodescripción que cuente con una persona detrás. Por lo tanto, tengamos en cuenta estos aspectos antes de lanzarnos a la automatización. El noveno paso es recoger la opinión de los usuarios para mejorar la accesibilidad. Ya he comentado que en este paso es importantísimo también contar con medidas de accesibilidad y creemos que es importante fijarnos en dos cuestiones. Una es si han entendido el espectáculo y otra es si han disfrutado de este espectáculo. Nuestra última recomendación es fortalecer los vínculos con la investigación sobre accesibilidad a la cultura. Creemos que es indispensable que trabajemos en red y que las personas, las compañías que hacen estas actuaciones se acerquen también a las universidades y podamos compartir experiencias para enriquecernos unos y otros, para ir mejorando poco a poco en materia de accesibilidad a la cultura. Además, será una manera de dar a conocer las mejores prácticas para que cada vez tengamos un contexto más accesible. Damos un par de ideas más en el decálogo: pensar en la accesibilidad como un valor añadido y pensar en la sostenibilidad de las medidas de accesibilidad. Y otro es pensar en la diversidad y la inclusión ya desde dentro, desde la ficha técnica del espectáculo. No os doy más detalles sobre estos dos apuntes finales porque os invito encarecidamente a consultar el documento que, como veis por su título, pertenece a la red AccessCat, que es una red de transferencia del conocimiento financiada por la Generalitat de Cataluña. Tenéis el decálogo disponible tanto en nuestra web, que es accesscat.net, como en el repositorio de la Universidad Pompeu Fabra. Si entráis en el repositorio en línea solamente poniendo AccessCat llegaréis directamente al documento. Y hasta aquí los minutos divulgativos de hoy. Espero que disfrutemos mucho juntos de esta temporada nueva. Hasta pronto.
And we're back. Thank you, Blanca, for your wonderful section. And now we're going to continue the interview. There's something I wanted to mention earlier because we've talked about Hermes, and Hermes was an example of a test that didn't work in the sense that it was free. Too many people took the test and it was impossible to deal with. Like, how are you supposed to correct thousands and thousands of applicants at the same time with no money? So in that sense, I think there's a correlation. Well, AVTpro was designed taking that into account, not only in the money aspect, but also in the limitation. I think there's a limitation to the amount of people that can take the certification for now, right, Jorge?
Correct. Well, we were aware of the positives, but also the downsides of Hermes. And we've tried to learn from experience and create something that is manageable, and that people will feel that there is an added value to the work that they've done. And in that sense, we're making sure that, as I mentioned earlier on, the examiners will be properly qualified and people with lots of experience. And we don't want to have 85 examiners. We want to have a number of examiners that will be homogeneous, that will be marking along the lines of the guidance that we've provided to the examiners and the style guides that we provide to the candidates and so on. And for that, you need to keep numbers low. Remember, and as I mentioned earlier on, these are professionals that are working on subtitling every day. And they are doing also this other activity of helping certify some of the best people in the industry as well. And that means that we need to take as well the workloads into consideration to make sure that it's manageable for them as well. So that's why we're not doing this constantly. There are periods of examination where we're not taking, for instance, on this occasion, no more than 25 exams per language, because we want the examiners to be working on this in a way that is manageable, that is enjoyable, what they're doing, and that is also rewarding, both financially and personally. So yes, this idea of putting limitations that we feel comfortable with is being present from the inception of the certification and the design of the whole exam.
That actually goes in the opposite way of trying to make profit from this.
Yes.
Just to point it out, because it's true.
Yeah, I know. To me, I laughed a little bit because I know what we've been working in and I know what we've been developing and the amounts of money that we're moving in here. And it just sounds a little bit ridiculous to some extent. I know we are recording, but I will ask anyone to just go to any university in the UK to take a look at how much is an MA in translation, whichever university they want to choose in the UK or in the USA or even in other countries. And we're talking about thousands and thousands of pounds and thousands of euros. And we're talking here a few $100s that are going to end up in the pockets of the professionals in the industry. I just find it, it's a bit like commenting for the mere fact of commenting without really knowing what is behind the whole initiative. And that's why I feel that some of the comments that have been circulating are out of ignorance, lack of knowledge, rather than actually attacking the essence of the program. There are some things that I can understand, but some others I just laugh because I think, well, really,
Yeah.
Can you give examples?
Yeah.
Is it necessary?
Yeah, well, I think, of course, I can. Of universities, no, just check. I work at university. You can go and check. Any universities, you only need to Google audiovisual translation and MAs or on translation in general. And you'll find it's the thousands, depending on where you come from in certain countries. So the amount of money that we're talking here is in the hundreds. Someone was criticizing the certification because it was to make money and recommending people to do any courses available out there, as if they were any better in quality or in respectability or whatever. There was no filter. So the certification, no. Invest that money on any course that you want to do. So, well, okay, fine, add more courses and then see whether it takes you anywhere. It probably takes you to another onboarding test or test to enter any company. But again, to me, that was really silly. It was more an argument of anger rather than out of knowledge or proper advice to anyone starting in the industry. But again, I understand that sometimes this social media can be a little bit...
Anger against the companies or anger against the certification itself?
Probably.
What do you think?
I'd like to understand it. And I think, again, these things can be very personal. And depending whether they are after a glass of wine or before a glass of wine might be different as well. And there are many elements that come into the equation. And I'm not taking them lightly. That's why I'm discussing about this topic. And I will discuss with anyone. I've been engaging with people as well in social media to try and explain what we are doing. And particularly when I see that some of the information is totally and utterly incorrect in there. But I think for some people, yes, when they were all the certification, actually, and quoting from the communique of the manifesto of the AVTE, if you read the AVTE in detail, and it's not that long, second paragraph down, it says that while we recognize the need for a professional certification in audiovisual translation, on this occasion, we don't think we can because of some of the companies and blah, blah, blah. They spell it out very clearly. So the need for a certification is acknowledged by everyone in the industry. Whilst working for these 4 languages, we discovered that the Dutch colleagues have been thinking about a certification for many years. so that, not anyone can do subtitles into Dutch, because they felt that there was a lot of intrusism, that there were lots of people that because they spoke English, they just could do subtitles, and they were sick and tired of that sort of approach, of which me personally, I'm also sick and tired. But they've been discussing, they wanted to do a certification, but they were struggling. It was volunteering, very challenging to be able to develop something concrete. So the need of a certification, I think, is crystal clear in everyone. And when I was commenting with some people that were very against it, when I mentioned, well, I understand or I assume that you are against certifications per se. Oh, no, that's not what I meant. I think certifications are needed. Of course they are needed. We know that they exist in all sorts of professions, and more than anything, liberal professions. So it's not that. But I do understand as well that there is other elements. Work satisfaction might not be high or as high as we would like. Rates can be very low with some of the companies and the way they're doing it. And I guess it was a reaction to many of those things. We've got technology, artificial intelligence coming, and with some daunting stories that nobody seems to know what's going to happen. Am I risking my future here now? Will the future be really traumatic for my profession? We don't know. We cannot know what's coming ahead. And that, I think, was part of some people's reaction. I'll say, okay, fine, I'm so fed up with all the things that this will be a good way of venting my anger and just mentioning it on here. And not so much sometimes to the essence of the certification. If you ask the people the task that we are covering, everybody's quite happy with those. Oh, yes, we want this. We don't want people to come here not knowing anything about subtitling. No companies will do you a test on theory of subtitling. Some colleagues, professionals said, no, we need something like that. Not anybody can do subtitling. You need to know more about subtitling than just translating on a template. You need to know more than that. So we incorporated all that as well. So it's not an onboarding test in that sense. It's much more because we were listening to people and we wanted to incorporate. So once you deconstruct the whole initiative experience, people start seeing it from different angles, and then they start nuancing their arguments and their opposition. And as I said, it sort of boils down to somehow the dislike that some people have of some companies that are behind the initiative. It's not the certification as such. It's not the content. I was reading someone that they were surprised that the people behind it, some academics and professionals, were of so high standard. But I don't really see what is the shock in there. We believe in the project. I think I've been working in the industry for over 20-something years when nobody was doing anything on audiovisual translation and subtitling. And I think I've proved my worth on doing things that I think are positive for the industry. I might get it completely wrong. And if I get it wrong, sorry, my mistake, we'll close shop and it didn't work. But right now, I think it's one of the few things that we can do, that we can raise awareness and that we need to do something. Otherwise, we are just maintaining the status quo. And if people are unhappy with the status quo, if we don't do anything, it's going to be the same. Mm-hmm. So what can we do? And I think this is one of the many, many other things that we need to do. And I support wholeheartedly all the associations in audiovisual translation. I've been initiating many of them, and I've been lending my support all the time. And I will continue. I don't take these as being negative. I think we just see things in slightly different ways, which is fair and square. And I do hope that in the future we'll see eye to eye. The manifesto, for instance, of AVT leaves the door open, as we left the door open to them, that if things change in the future, if they think that there is some mileage for them to be involved, that they will come back or they will join us in the initiative. And I will keep my eyes and my ears peeled and open to any advice and any information that they can give us or how to improve things. I don't have anything. Of all the comments that I've received, one of the ones that I felt really and personally touched, and not in a good way, was that the initiative is not transparent. Mm-hmm. And that I really take personally, and I take it to heart. And I'm not sure who is going to be listening to this, but my email...
Many people. We hope many people is going to be listening to this.
Yes. And my email is available very openly on the website, on websites, my university. I'll be more than happy to reply to anyone. Since day one, I've always given away my PowerPoint presentations. Whenever I go to any country that I go, I give my PowerPoints to anyone that is asking me to give that. I've never in my life kept anything secret or non-transparent on purpose. If there is anything non-transparent, it's because we haven't communicated well. It's not because we're hiding anything. And please ask anything. And I was glad that Blanca commented and asked me about what does it mean, all these 3 tiers. I don't quite understand. I hope I replied to that.
You did.
And I'll be more than happy for anyone to just ask any questions about what is not clear and where is the money going, or how are the companies involved, or how are the professionals. There are things that I cannot say. If some professionals don't want to be listed there, don't ask me who is the examiner for this language. They probably don't want to be there. That probably has to do as well with some of the perceptions that are out there by some people. But the transparency is in there, and everybody's been invited from day one to say what they want and discuss it. And I remain, as they say in here, truly yours anytime you want to ask any questions.
I wanted to say I'm not suspicious about anything, because as people listening to this may know, I'm not part of AVTpro, that you actually are not just transparent, but you are a facilitator of content regarding AVT, because you always send anyone who wants to be part of your email list information. I mean, you do it each week or each month, or I don't know how often, but everyone receives Jorge Díaz-Cintas email and we comment on it. So I think you are the opposite. I want to think that whoever said that didn't mean that you are not transparent, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think, again, you just in the spirit of the moment, and then you just comment something. And yes, I can understand sometimes. The rest of arguments, I can try to digest, and I can understand why they're saying that, because they don't have more knowledge or whatever. It was the transparency, because we've been trying to, we had a website as soon as we could. We've given quite a few presentations at different events and conferences, and always open for people to ask anything that they want to ask. As I said, I will be responding to anyone if they've got any questions or what they may have. So that's what I find a little bit hurting.
And you're here.
Yeah, and I'm here
in this interview.
Yeah, and I'll be anywhere else if they want me to give an answer. But that's what I find a little bit sort of hurting. Yeah, the rest I can see and I can try to inform.
It's funny because I feel like you've somehow replied to 5 or 6 questions in a row from different angles. I'm happy about that. You've talked a lot about transparency, so let's focus on that, because that's also something that's mentioned in the statement by AVT. Can you tell us a little more about the design of the test, the 2 certifications that will be available, and the instructions for candidates, because those instructions are going to be public if they're not already public?
They are.
They are.
They are already. Yeah. All the certifications, all the instructions for individual exams are available on the web. There are also instructions on the platform, the subtitling platform that we're going to be using, because you need a subtitling platform if you want to test subtitles. So that was a bit of an issue, because we had very clear in our minds that we're not testing the use of any subtitling software. So you don't need to be proficient on Una or WinCaps or Easy Titles or Fab or Titlevision or AegisUp or whichever. We wanted people to be fluent in subtitling, but we do need a platform if you're going to do working from template. So that's why we brought Una. Una was involved in here, and her contribution has been on developing the platform. So we do have guidelines on how to use the platform so that nobody is caught unaware. So all the information is there before you decide whether to take the test or not. We've also got an appeal system. We've been monitoring what other certification bodies do. So we have an appeal system in case somebody's unhappy with the results. Then again, clearly explained and elaborated on how people can just query any results. And again, we've been following the advice of the Ofqual, which is the Office of Qualifications in the UK, but also some other associations that have been working along those lines. There are 3 different areas. There is one area which is the basics of subtitling. And what we're trying to do there is to see that the basics on the theory of subtitling, and I mean the theory, very basic things. It is a reading speed of 35 characters per second, okay. But you don't need to know much about subtitling to know whether it is true or false.
Is it? Can we use 35?
No.
I leave it open to you, and then while you do the exam, you'll see.
Okay.
He doesn't want to give us the answers.
No. I won't do that. But I think they're not questions to take anybody unaware, but just to make sure that people know more than just, they know more about the industry, the way we do things, and the elements that are essential for us in subtitling. Then we've got a second task, which is on knowledge of English. And again, colloquialisms, sensitive language, cultural references, and then how they get translated. And do you know English if you are going to be translating from English? Then there is another one. Do you know translation? Do you know your language well? So you get a text in English and then several translations in your language to make sure that you select the one that you think is more appropriate to the original. And then we've got another one, which is you get a short video with a subtitle, and then you are going to look at the subtitle and tell us whether you think the subtitle is correct, is incorrect, the subtitle is out of sync, comes in too early or too late, or leaves the screen too early or too late, or is gone over a short change, there is a typo in there, or there is an error in the way the information is presented with double blank spaces or whatever. The things that we look all the time, the line breaks in your subtitles, which we are going to be looking when you're doing subtitles. To us, when we were discussing the essence of the certifications, those were really basic dimensions. We might want to add some in the future, but we felt without that, you cannot really progress to do subtitling. Then if you pass that, which is the very basics, and then the payment is minimal, because again, we were very aware we didn't want to make this that people felt exploited, that you pay £275 out of $275 and then you fail in the first task. Say, well, no. This is $25. If you don't pass, please reconsider. You might not want to do this certification just yet. You might want to wait a little bit longer and do it later. Yeah, this is meant to be professional. It's not just, let's see if I'm lucky and I can pass. So if you do that, then there are two possibilities. You can do the translation certification, which was one the companies were very happy with, because large corporations, as we all know, is not surprise and is not secret, work from templates. So you get a template that is come usually in English, even when you do pivoting through English, and then you've got your translation. And for some companies, that was enough to do your certification and being certified. Associations were totally against that, feeling that no, if you want to do subtitles, even if you work from templates, you need to know the essence. You need to be able to also do the spotting, which, by the way, I agree with, and that's what I teach to my students. End of parenthesis. And what we were doing there was, okay, then what we're going to do is another certification, and people will decide. You've got the creation certification, you do everything from scratch. Of course, I think if you can prove that you can do the creation, by default, you should be able to do the template.
Of course.
The translation.
Yeah.
But that's my assumption. I've been called up by some people because I've done things wrong. So maybe my assumption is incorrect, but I'm leaving that there on how is it. But people will be able to decide, I want to do both, I only want to do one, or whatever. And that's the way we look at it and decided that was what we agreed. And I'm telling you as well, insider information on where the tensions were. AVTE, for instance, were very adamant that no spotting will be allocated to this certification. So that's what we created, creation. And also task number 4, which is you don't do the spotting yourself, but if you don't know about spotting, you won't realize probably that the subtitle went over a short change, or that it comes in too late or too early, or whatever other elements are relating to the technical dimension. So those are the main tasks. They're all explained in as much detail as we felt was necessary in the instructions that are downloadable from the website. So anybody can go there and see the different tasks and what they are made of, how long do you have to complete each of the tasks, and so on. We're not making any secret from any of the things that we're doing. We're not doing this to cheat people and get their money out. So we're telling them, please only do the exam if you feel you've got the experience. We're aiming at people with experience. So if you just simply finish your degree, or you haven't done any professional subtitling, you haven't been exposed to subtitling software, maybe the certification is not for you and you should wait a little bit longer to do it. So that's the ethos, and that's the way we're presenting it.
I was also going to ask you about the specific videos used, because you said that you were going to change from one edition to the next. And if I'm not mistaken, those clips used come from different sources, from different genres. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, the idea was most of the onboarding tests or entry tests of companies is the same one. Doesn't matter which languages you're translating from. It's the same video that they might use for a very long time, which in the end, it just detracts from credibility of that test if you've seen it, I don't know how many times before. So the idea here, as in many other certifications, is that anytime the exam period is open, then you got a different exam. We're not going to be repeating the same material that you've seen before. So the idea is that you will get 3 short scenes all embedded into one video, so that is easier for marking purposes as well. So it's one video altogether that contains roughly 100 subtitles and 3 different genres. There is a short scene which we think is comedy, although some people might not laugh at it. We've got another scene that is drama and another scene that is documentary corporate videos, because there's an area that is also growing in the industry and we didn't want to leave corporate videos out of the equation either. So those are the 3. They can come in any way. It can come comedy, drama, corporate video, or it can come corporate video, comedy, drama, whatever. And there are what we call combinations. So you're going to get 3 videos, and those 3 videos, you might end up in combination number 1. Another person might end up in combination number 7. Combination number 7 is 3 videos, totally radically different to the ones that you've seen in your first combination. So they are constantly changed, and we will change, of course. When edition 2 comes, then we will change the videos and we will change that. What it won't change is the number of subtitles, which is going to be between 90 and 100. And then participants have got 36 hours to do the exam. Now, another aside, I think 36 hours for me is far too long.
It is.
I never give my students that long to work on that. I give them 24 hours. But this was a compromise. People from AVTE decided that 24 hours was too short, that we wanted to really test people and have the possibility of going back to your work the day after or after a few hours of relaxation and so on. And the compromise was, okay, fine, we'll do it 36 hours. I still, till today, I think it's too long. But that's my opinion. It wasn't the opinion of everyone.
Just out of curiosity, maybe you cannot tell us this, and if you cannot, don't worry. But how did you get the actual videos, the material? Was it licensed material for this exam, or is it?
That was very challenging. We couldn't use anything that is in Netflix or Amazon or Disney. The risk will be that people will just rush to the platform and then look for the material.
Yeah, that's my point.
So linking with companies of that nature, it was a no-no
Part.
because it didn't make sense. We would always have that sort of nagging feeling that they went to the platform and look at it. And even if they do, you couldn't just fail them because they cheated. Because, you know, as a professional, fine, if something is available, you're going to go and check. And maybe that will help you. So we wanted to do this in a professional manner. I'll repeat again, it's not academic. So for academics, I might not allow my students to do certain things, which in fact I do. But I know some other colleagues won't allow them to use the website. Okay, you do it this way, or they won't allow the students to use automated translation because it's an exam for a master's. Fine, that's what they do. On other places, we allow people because that's what the industry is doing. That's what the technology is out there. Use it properly so that you don't shoot yourself on your feet or on your brain using a translation that it doesn't make sense. But we tried to use material that then wasn't already out there and easily available. And I cannot give you much information because we don't want to send people looking for material in different areas. But we've managed to get some material, sometimes with smaller corporations, smaller producers themselves of their own material, that they want a little bit of visibility on what is out there. Corporate videos can be a little bit easier because they are not distributed heavily on the internet, and they were quite happy to say, okay, fine, then just use it. There are academic videos as well that sometimes they don't require any copyright and so on. But it wasn't easy to find the material. It's also challenging on how do you choose your scenes in a way that it makes sense, that they're not referring to something that is been said before and then therefore that cultural reference is completely cryptic to you, or that reference doesn't make sense because it was already explored somewhere else in the program. So we had about 10 people helping us choosing scenes, and then from there, once we had a few, we then went through them as well and got rid of some of them. And again, remember, we're doing about 100 subtitles maximum. So that meant that we needed to have videos of roughly the same length of subtitles, that you couldn't have 80 in comedy, and then you don't have enough to do 10 in drama and 10 in the other one. So we had again to do those things, and that was challenging, and I would presume that it's going to continue to be challenging in the future if we want to be balanced and equal in languages and so on.
All of them, each video, each scene is intended to be balanced in terms of the challenges it entails, right? It's not that you, for example, rated the level that you need for one scene, and then if you get a difficult comedy scene, you get an easier corporate video, right?
No.
All of them are balanced.
They are balanced. They are balanced. Sometimes from the same production, we get 2-3 clips, and then we will expose one different clip to different people, and then we mix them. Again, it's always very difficult to say, is this more difficult than the other one? It depends. And I don't know, you might be an expert on mechanical engineering, and the corporate video documentary is about building bridges. And wow, great, that's what you've been doing recently. So we never know. And then for you, it's not complicated, but for some other people might be. So that's why we mix them to hopefully expose everybody to different things. And on some of them, they might be very familiar, on some others, they might not.
Let me go back to something that you mentioned earlier. You said that you want to work with few examiners. So one question that comes up is, how are you going to guarantee impartiality? So that somebody doesn't always fail because they know who that person is and they don't want to help them pass, because that's something that in certain companies or certain translators may fear that could be happening.
Yeah.
So how does the certification deal with that?
Yeah, that risk is at all levels, my university as well. What I get from my students is a candidate name that I don't know and is released only to the candidates a few days before they do exams and projects and things like that. So it's a very common issue, and all certifications need to address that. I mentioned to you that we want to start with few or a reasonably small number of examiners because we want to get into the swing of things and for people to feel that they're managing well with the system. To a large extent, we're sort of inventing the wheel because there wasn't a professional certification as such. And what some companies have done is internal exams that we weren't privy to see how they were working. We saw the videos themselves and the tasks that they were asking, but not so much how the internal workflows were working. So we have to create all those things from scratch for the platform that we're going to be using. And then the way it works is that whoever registers for the certification, they will get a candidate number that is done with an administrator, and is a candidate number is an exam number. It's not a candidate number, it's an exam number that will follow them when they're doing the exam. And that exam number is the one that will reach the examiner. So the examiner will know that they received exam number 500. They just take a look at it and they don't know who that person might be. There are two examiners, they know each other, but they will mark separately, and only once the two markings has been done, then they will be put together and then find out what the actual mark will be for the candidates. We've decided to go for a rather simple, layered criteria. So you can either fail, you can pass, or you can pass with distinction. So there's no in between. In academic circles, we've got also merit, which a lot of people end up being in. For this one, we were thinking whether a pass-fail will be enough. For some people, and we were divided in this conception, some people felt that, if you're a really, really good subtitler with lots of experience, a pass might not give you the edge compared to other people, whereas if you could get a distinction, then that will be a different way of portraying yourself or presenting yourself to certain companies. And I think the majority of people were convinced by that argument, so that's why we included with distinction. When jobs are, superb and outstanding, that's when people will get that sort of certification.
And traditional tests taken by companies and corrected in-house. So we were mentioning that those are somehow linked with a lot of frustration because they may be failing you and you don't know why, and you ask for feedback. They don't reply because they're not interested in working with you. So why would they invest any time replying to that? So how will the certification deal with feedback so that if someone happens to fail, they can improve and do something to end up having their certification?
We've come up with a list of errors that are based on the industry, and I have to say that that's none of my doing. It was done by two colleagues with lots of experience in this type of in-house testing. So it's not an academic typology, but it comes from the industry, and also adapting how to calculate the severity of some of the errors, with also an addition of some commendable solutions. So traditionally, we mark in the negative, error, so I detract from you. But on this occasion, we also wanted to incorporate an element of congratulatory reaction there, that you've done a really good solution and you deserve some credit. So we're adding points to your work in here. I have to say that the whole inspiration, according to what I've read and what I was told as well by the people that designed this typology, is that there was a bit of inspiration as well from the FAR model, instigated by Jan Pedersen from the University of Stockholm, that has also got quite a bit of echo within the industry. So we wanted to do something that it was in that way. So that typology of errors will allow us to give granular information to the candidates to say, okay, find the majority of errors in your case were reading speed considerations or line breaking. You weren't paying enough attention to line breaking. You weren't adhering to the guidelines that we gave you, whereby italics should have been used on this occasion, and blah, blah. So we are going to give them specific feedback on the errors that they have committed, or if they haven't committed errors, then we'll give them general information on what the overall performance was. Again, nothing is hidden. So in the instructions for the exams, you've got the category of errors that the examiners are going to be using when marking your exam. So the only thing that you need to do is go through those errors and see what is it that they're going to be paying attention, so that I will also pay attention to this and make sure that I am as thorough as I can with my examination. We understand fully that there are many ways of doing subtitles, and then many companies will do them differently. What we're doing with this certification is, if you are a professional, you should be aware that companies have different set of guidelines, and you should be able and professional enough to adapt or to implement the parameters that they're given to you. Therefore, what we're asking you to do is those style guides that we've given you from the very beginning, is you will be assessed on your adherence to those guidelines. So if those guidelines ask you to do a particular thing, even if Netflix is asking you to do it differently, the assessment is going to be on the guidelines that have been created for the purpose of this certification. And as I mentioned earlier on this afternoon, the guidelines are more aligned with the national practices than any company in particular.
I have to say that I love that you have published these guidelines, because as a teacher at university, I always have to weigh whether I want to use Netflix parameters or more traditional ones. And I think having these ones published, where you have tried to put together, different perspectives and not just the views of one company, I think is good also for prospective students who will be trained in AVT. I think that's very nice.
To be honest as well, when we were discussing, because this was an idea or a decision that we took very early on, the idea was as well to sort of not compete, but show that there are other ways of doing subtitles that sometimes are much more national driven. And that's why we allowed, if you read them, they're all different. We try to touch on every element so that people feel that they are substantial guidelines, but the way you do italics in French will be different to the way you do italics in Spanish, or the way you do snap to shot will be different according to the languages. The French will leave 4 gap separation between consecutive subtitles. In Spanish, we leave 2. So we were looking at all the guidelines, and we felt as well that that was a way of boosting the association's projection, in the way that people that are doing this certification will have to go through, in essence, in many cases, the guidelines of the associations, and bringing their visibility and bringing that sort of other way of doing things that is not just one company out there. So I'm glad that you enjoyed that and that you see the worth of that approach.
Well, now that you're mentioning associations, I think it's a good moment to go back to AVT, because in their statement, they leave the door open to collaborating with the certification if certain requirements are met.
Yes.
And they list the requirements. They talk about working conditions, etc. Do you think this is something that could be achieved in the future? How could the two positions meet somehow so that all the possible stakeholders are involved in the certification?
I would hope so. And I would hope that we will see a common ground for this to be successful. I believe in working in an environment that is healthy, that is enjoyable, and then people are happy to do that. And that's why I prepare students to come into the industry. And I have prepared the students for over 27 years to work in precisely this industry. So I'm not doing this because I want to be favoring certain companies or because I want to be favoring certain associations or because I want to be favoring certain universities. I'm doing this because I truly believe that we need to do something, and without doing nothing, we're not really going to change anything. So you have to do something. If we get it wrong, I already mentioned earlier, well, bad luck, apologies, it didn't work. But I think we need to do something and try to work in the right direction. So I hope that that common goal is enough ground at some point for us to be collaborating. I can see as well some other of the elements that they were mentioning, and they were making reference to 4 of them in particular. Now, I cannot guarantee that translators who have passed the certifications will be offered better working conditions and better payments. I cannot do that with my students doing an MA. And I don't think anybody in their right mind can guarantee that our certification is going to give you that. It can guarantee that it will put you in a better position to negotiate for that. But I don't think anybody anywhere in the world, and if there is anyone, please let me know, and I will reach out to see how they do it, and then we will try and do it in our own field. For good or evil, we live in capitalist societies. You cannot have a list of prices. I couldn't say, okay, fine, if you do the certification, then you're going to get a minimum of $5, $10 per minute. Sorry, no, I will be sent to prison, most likely. That's not something that we can do. That's why no associations have got lists. You can find ways of, we've done a survey and people say that they get paid or they don't get paid, and then you get a sort of minimum and maximum that people have told you, but you cannot do that. And I think when we were discussing this, it was clear in many people as well that that was possibly asking too much. We can, yes, if some clients say, I want people to be of this level, then possibly companies will have to pay a bit more to people that have got that certification because they represent another level of quality. And the other one as well, we should provide total transparency, which I totally disagree with, in the sense that I think everything is very, very transparent and everybody knows what we're doing, and we've been listening and remained open to listen and so on. But just to put them in touch to all the different companies involved in here. But I don't need to put anybody in touch. You just go to any conference and they're there. All their names are there. They come to conferences and they talk to people. So you can go to a conference and talk to them. I don't see the certification as a way of negotiating fees. That's not the way of a certification. That's not something that you could do with any other certifications. If you want to negotiate fees, then you go to a trade union and then you go on a strike. And then you find what they've done in the USA, or what I've been doing as a teacher for 2 years now, or 3 years nearly, that we've been striking because we feel that our pay, salaries, and some of our working conditions are not good enough. And then we go on a strike. But as an association, you cannot strike. You cannot do those things. So sometimes I feel that there is a bit of a misunderstanding on what is the real concrete elements that we can do and what are the ones that we cannot. I will be happy and I think we've been setting up environments. I coordinate languages and the media. I'm also behind the organization and Media for All. We've been creating platforms as sessions that are only devoted to professional translators. We've been bringing and putting into contact professional translators and members of companies. So we're trying to establish that dialogue in other environments. And I think that should be discussed as well. And I will be more than happy to, the next Languages and the Media in Budapest, I'll be more than happy to bring some of these companies, try to get some people talking to the associations, and then discuss how we can improve working conditions, payments, and whatever. But I think that is another discussion that I'm quite happy to support. I'm quite happy to help navigate and to create a propitious moment to discuss that. But I think that's not the remit of a certification. A certification is something different.
I see that there was a need for you, Jorge, to try to, talk about what you've been doing. And really, I don't think that anyone made more for audiovisual translation than you. And this doesn't mean that there are not other people working. I do it here in Latin America as well. But I think you've been a beacon of light for all of us. So, but maybe there's something going on that made you, try to share your CV with us. But I think that even those who are criticizing the initiative know who you are. So I don't mean that because of who you are, you can do whatever you want and we need to support whatever you do. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, no.
But what I'm saying is that I think that there's no way that one can doubt that what you're always doing is for the benefit of the profession, at least in my opinion. So I wanted to say that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's not just me. We've been many people.
Yes, I know.
And it is a concerted effort. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. You need critical mass to grow in the way we've done it.
But you took it very personally because
No.
in this last question you were like, I've been doing languages in the media and I've been doing media for all. And we know.
Yeah, no. But I take it in a way that I can do that. What they're asking me to do, transparency. How about meeting all these companies and so on? Please come to Berlin. I'll introduce you to them. I'll do all these things. I'm not hiding from that. That's what I'm trying to imply here. That I'm not saying, oh, no, you cannot talk to these people. These are my people and I'm not going to put you in touch with them. I think there are many other areas, but we can do that. And I will be more than happy to do that. But for the certification, blocking the certification, for that reason, I think there is a lack of foresight. And I don't think there is a debate that pertains to the certification itself. Either you like the certification or you don't. And if you think the tasks are wrong, then we can sit down and decide, okay, we shouldn't be testing people on these questions. They don't make any sense. We should be testing people on this, the other, and the other, which is what we agree together. Some of the other things, yes, I would like everybody to get paid more, including myself. And that's why we've been going on a strike at my university. But you reach that through other means. And that's what I'm trying to convey and to make people understand. And I think this will help for you to negotiate. That's where you increase your salary, negotiating. And if they want to negotiate, you go on a strike. Sorry, that's capitalism. And that's the way it works. And people have to sit down and negotiate with the script writers. Otherwise, we were in trouble. So that's the way it is. Why have the Scandinavians been successful whenever they've done something? Because they are fully unionized. And then they've gone through the union. We don't do this. And then they stopped in Finland, in Norway, when they've been doing things like that. So that is a debate that I will always support and I will always back and I will always be in favor of. But that is in a different environment. That's got nothing to do with a certification, in my opinion. Both are in the same direction of making the profession a better place to work, a better environment to enjoy life, but they cannot be seen together. They are together, but it's not, if I don't do this, I cannot do the other one. No, I think we have to do one and the other and way in different directions. And there are many other ways where all these objectives or these claims by AVTE can be reached. Talking to the companies is something that it can be done very easily in any of the events that are organized.
I think, Jorge, that a way to end this interview on a positive note would be to explain where AVTpro is now in its first edition and what your goals are for the near future and what languages do you expect to include, because I'm sure Damian is waiting for Latin American Spanish to be included as well.
Okay.
Yes. Most of the people listening to this podcast come from Argentina. So
that's a fact. Yeah.
We need to know. We need to know when the Latin American test is coming.
Right. Well, I hope that I haven't come across as being, negative or feisty against anyone. I think, as I reiterate, I've opened to any discussions. I think, in essence, we're all looking for the same things and for the greater good for all of us in here. So I hope that, if I've tried to justify some of the elements or some of the dimensions, some of the aspects that have been commented on social media, is not being aggressive. And I remain open to anyone that would like to pursue any of the discussions further with me. Having said that, then yes, we are very, very positive looking into the future. And I've already liaised with Damian a little bit earlier than we started here. We've been given the go-ahead for 4 new languages, among those Latin American Spanish and Brazilian Portuguese, and then 2 European languages, Norwegian and Swedish. So those are the first 4 new additions. And then we've got another 5 languages that might be added in September. So remember, the next edition, now we call them editions, exam period, but exam period sounded a little bit too academic and too heavy. So it's edition 1 for certification, which is now until the 17th of December. Then we'll have another edition started on the 8th of April. so that we've got time to prepare the new languages, mark anything that is being done now, and for people to get their results. And then we will have another one, most likely in September 24, with another 5 languages added. If you've visited the website, you will see that now what we're doing is subtitle translation. And then in April, we'll be launching subtitle translation in 8 languages together with subtitle creation, whereby people will just get the videos and then they will do the spotting and everything from scratch. So those are the things lined up for the near future. And I hope that will help us to reach other languages, to make it a bit more understood, that people can see how things are developing and what are the implications of the certification. And maybe the debates can be a little bit more productive in discussing this topic.
We'll be looking forward to that, Jorge.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm really glad that we found the time to do this interview, because I think you really explained well some of the concerns and some of the criticism that is logical and reasonable.
Yeah.
That also has an explanation. So I'm happy that we could provide it here.
Yeah. I hope that it's, although we'll see, but I hope things won't be misquoted, and then we can have a healthy debate. So we'll see.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you to the 3 of you for organizing this, not just this talk today, but for keeping up with Sincronía, which I think is an iconic production and unique. So very well done.
Oh my God, he said iconic. I mean,
It is.
This is too much.
I don't see of any other ones.
We need that on our website.
Yes.
Jorge Díaz-Cintas said we are iconic.
5 stars, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and with that element of volunteerism, doing it out of your good heart, most of it, and it's a lot of work, I know. So congrats.
Oh, no, we do it for the money. We do it for the money, like you.
Yes, for the 0 money.
Yeah. Well, welcome.
Thank you, Jorge. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
you.
Bye.
Bueno, muy bien, y hasta aquí llegamos con la entrevista a Jorge Díaz-Cintas. Blanca, ¿qué te pareció? Contanos tu opinión como outsider de AVTpro.
Al ser el outsider del episodio. Pues a mí me ha servido mucho porque yo, a través de vosotros y por algún episodio anterior del podcast que ya hemos mencionado en la entrevista, sabía de la existencia de AVTpro, y a mí me habían generado muchas dudas los manifiestos que había visto de algunas asociaciones. Yo, evidentemente, con una, como no puede ser de otra manera, estoy encantada porque me gusta que apoye nuestro podcast, por lo tanto, yo no tengo nada en contra de ninguna empresa particular que haya detrás de la iniciativa, pero como veía tantas quejas por las redes, pues sí que tenía un poco de, no sé si decir preocupación, pero eso, dudas en todo caso. Y la verdad es que sigo pensando que no lo conozco en profundidad y que no formo parte de ello como para manifestarme con mucha contundencia de una manera o de otra, pero lo que me parece indudable es que Jorge lo defiende de corazón y que él cree en la causa, y para mí eso vale mucho, y en general me ha servido mucho para entender cómo está organizado, y creo que para la docencia, que es lo que a mí ahora me interesa así a corto plazo, es muy interesante porque, al final se ofrecen también pues recursos nuevos como esta guía de estilo. Se ofrece un poco la oportunidad de decirles a los estudiantes, fijaos en qué tipo de cosas se están evaluando en pruebas como esta, ¿no? Que eso siempre es algo bueno. Y sí, estoy contenta con la entrevista, creo que ha sido muy útil como outsider.
Aclaramos lo de outsider, porque hay que hacer el disclaimer de que Guille y yo somos parte del equipo de AVTpro. Entonces, por eso lo de outsider, no por ninguna otra cosa.
Sí, no imaginéis en el patio de la escuela.
No, por ahí pensaban que te discriminábamos por académica. No son cosas que hagamos nosotros. A mí una de las cosas que también me parece muy importante, y es algo parecido, en realidad, algunas de las cosas que mencionó Blanca recién, tiene que ver con, y quiero destacarlo, el tema de las guías. Si bien lo mismo, no es una guía de una asociación ni nada por el estilo, es una cosa más que se suma, pero también es muy interesante esto de que muchas veces, por no decir en casi todos los casos, se enseña con la guía de Netflix, y la verdad que me parece que eso también es algo que esto puede ayudar un poco a cambiar, porque también el hecho de que se enseñe con eso en muchos cursos y demás, sobre todo en cosas más bien privadas, también hace que después se aplique eso a un montón de rubros, como por ejemplo el rubro de lo que es el subtitulado técnico, corporativo, en donde quizás hay un montón de reglas que se pueden cambiar y modificar, porque no es lo mismo un entretenimiento que traducir una conferencia por Zoom o algo por el estilo. Entonces, la verdad que en ese sentido está muy bueno. Y el otro punto que quiero destacar es la cuestión personal con Jorge, de cómo Jorge, la verdad es que yo lo sentí, se lo dije en la entrevista, como que se había obligado a no solo a defender la iniciativa, sino a defenderse él mismo, ¿no? Como diciendo, bueno, o sea, yo vengo haciendo esto, y creo que es completamente innecesario que Jorge Díaz-Cintas justamente tenga que hacer eso. Pero bueno, evidentemente también se sintió en la obligación de hacerlo por un poco lo que se fue generando en estas últimas semanas, ¿no?
Sí, yo es que quiero comentar muchas cosas en realidad. Empezando porque, claro, es que Jorge fue premiado por Atrae aquí en España con el premio Xenia Martínez, con un premio por su labor en el sector de la traducción audiovisual. No es una tontería de premios. Si miras todos los premiados, son todos grandes nombres y gente que realmente ha contribuido al sector. Entonces, yo creo que muchas reacciones se han debido más a los nombres de empresas que pueda haber detrás y con la que la gente tiene experiencias negativas, y también a que, claro, el hecho de que AVTpro emitiera ese comunicado no en contra, sino desmarcándose, desvinculándose de la certificación, pues hizo que saltaran las alarmas de mucha gente. O sea, luego sin leerte el comunicado, porque muchas de las cosas que decían en redes realmente las desmentía el propio comunicado. O sea, como bien decía Jorge, ellos mismos reconocían la necesidad de una certificación. ¿Pero qué pasa? Que bueno, muchos consideran que debería ser una iniciativa pública, no privada. Pero ¿qué institución, qué entidad va a sacar eso adelante con la dificultad que conlleva? Porque, como explicaba, no es un proyecto nada fácil, no es corregir un texto en un documento de Word, es algo mucho más complejo desde un punto de vista técnico y que hasta ahora nadie ha sacado adelante, pese a que en otros países ha intentado, estaba la idea desde hace tiempo rondando. Entonces, no es que en los últimos años estén pensando de qué manera nos van a sacar el dinero a los pobres traductores, como sea y a toda costa, sino que es algo que hace tiempo que está ahí la idea, ¿no? Pero alguien tenía que...
O precarizar la profesión, ¿no? También un poco la idea de que por algún motivo este examen precariza la profesión.
Al contrario. Y muchas cosas. Yo creo que también, además, es una certificación que, como es nueva, yo creo que tiene cierta flexibilidad. Es decir, claro que se hace con toda la buena intención del mundo, se hace despacito y de forma progresiva, como decía, con solo 25 pruebas en esta primera edición, o sea, con un límite de plazas, de nuevo, no por afán de lucro, sino porque quieren tenerlo todo controlado y que puede evolucionar. Si ve que hay cosas que no se han diseñado a la perfección o que se demuestra y se negocia con asociaciones o con profesionales o con quien sea y se llega a la conclusión de que algún elemento puntual que se puede mejorar y se haría mejor de otra forma, pues yo creo que esa flexibilidad existe y esa voluntad de mejorarlo y de pulirlo también. Al menos yo lo he visto desde dentro. Este episodio yo creo que me lo voy a guardar en favoritos y cada vez que alguien, algún troll o quien sea, me diga algo sin fundamento en las redes, le voy a copiar y pegar el enlace y bueno, ellos ya decidirán si quieren escuchar la entrevista o no. De nuevo, no es que no haya cosas criticables, ¿eh? Yo creo que toda la crítica constructiva es bienvenida y debe atenderse y en muchos casos lleva a mejorar la propuesta, pero claro, el destruir algo porque no te gusta la idea de que exista o por una sospecha de que puede haber una trama ahí corporativa, pues no lo veo.
En cualquier caso, habrá que ver cómo funciona, ¿no?
Claro, no.
La iniciativa es nueva, ¿no? Habrá que ver qué pasa.
Lo que también diría como respuesta a lo que ha comentado al principio de la entrevista Jorge sobre, bueno, si tienes un título, ya sea de grado o de máster, ¿no? Si eso supone algo o no versus esta certificación. Yo ahí la respuesta que diría claramente es mirad quiénes están en el equipo y si pertenecen a universidades y si tienen formación universitaria o no, porque son las personas que han preparado la prueba. Por lo tanto, eso es lo que te dice si te hace falta un título para enfrentarte a una subtitulación con calidad. Sin duda, tener esta certificación no te da ninguna formación para... O sea, perdón. Antes de hacerla necesitas la formación, si no, no puedes hacerla. Y si no, las personas que te van a corregir tienen también una formación que es universitaria. Por lo tanto, la validez de que hay que estudiar creo que está clara solamente mirando eso, mirando a quién se ha recurrido para montar la prueba.
es innegable. En muchos sentidos es una respuesta también a Hermes. Es que Hermes fue una iniciativa comparable en algunos aspectos, en otros no, pero claro, se vendió en todos lados, lo anunciaban como, trabaja en tu tiempo libre para Netflix, y claro, se presentó un montón de gente no cualificada y demás, entre otras cosas porque era gratuita. Esto es todo lo contrario.
Los traductores también se presentaron todos igual también.
Sí, traductores también.
Digo, porque ahí no escuché muchas cosas, muchos mensajes de redes sociales de que la prueba por ahí no era la mejor manera, pero que cualquiera que se dedicara a traducción audiovisual tenía ganas de hacerlo y lo hizo, y hasta el día de hoy en redes sociales, plataformas como LinkedIn y demás, vemos a gente que usa este es mi número Hermes como herramienta de marketing, cuando es un examen que hace 5 años que no existe más, ¿no?
Pasó la historia, sí.
No, pero lo digo porque estamos hablando de profesionales y quiere decir que si vos considerabas eso en su momento, me parece que acá, o sea, quizás lo que molesta es el costo, y creo que también en ese sentido quedó muy bien explicado que eso me parece un punto muy interesante para tener en cuenta, que es una reinversión del dinero, que no es que uno está pagándole a X agencia por tomar este examen, sino que todo lo contrario, sino que es lo que se paga tiene que ver con que se haya podido montar el examen.
Exacto. Y luego quería añadir otro comentario, no necesariamente de AVTpro solo, sino que estoy observando una tendencia entre los profesionales a criticar a los académicos por criticar. Ojo, hay académicos, o sea, de nuevo, todo es criticable, ¿eh? Aquí no, esto es como el humor. Yo creo que te puedes reír de todo, pero con los académicos siempre se ha criticado desconexión de la realidad, que no tienen en cuenta la realidad profesional, cómo trabajan la gente a la que forman y demás. Pero cuando luego llega gente como Jorge Díaz-Cintas y tiene iniciativas así, que son, si no rompedoras, o por lo menos es muy innovadoras y que aportan algo a nivel profesional, se los juzga como un académico que se está metiendo donde no le llaman y está intentando cambiar nuestras condiciones de trabajo pese a que él no vive de ello, ¿no? Y es como, ¿pero qué quieres que haga? O sea, no quieres que haga ninguna de las dos cosas, ni que observe y describa desde la distancia, ni tampoco que se meta. Entonces, ¿qué quieres que haga? Dejo la pregunta abierta.
Es una buena reflexión. Creo igualmente que acá hay muchos temas también, como nos suele pasar en el podcast, que admiten también otros episodios el día de mañana para seguir reflexionando. Por ejemplo, lo que comentaba Blanca recién de la relación, si el título me sirve o no me sirve, o cómo me sirve. Creo que también son conceptos que a veces no quedan claros. También me parece que, no sé si puedo decir simplemente que a la gente no le queda claro a veces que terminar una carrera no te habilita para hacer absolutamente cualquier cosa en el mundo de la traducción o en cualquier otra área profesional, ¿no? Pero también, bueno, que en muchos factores, como que no es la misma la formación en todos lados, que en muchos lugares la formación en traducción todavía es muy escueta, hay muy pocos lugares de formación en muchos países del mundo todavía. En América Latina, por ejemplo, es así, son muy nuevas las universidades que tienen la carrera, o en algunos países directamente no hay carrera de traducción, con lo cual me parece que también hay ciertos puntos que se pueden seguir tratando y charlando para el día de mañana.
Y el esfuerzo individual no es el mismo tampoco, o sea, yo he visto a gente comentando, bueno, y te sacas el grado, el máster, haces cursos constantes y vas a congresos y haces tal y haces cual y estás pendiente de las novedades de la RAE. Bueno, eso a lo mejor tú, pero todos no.
Sin duda.
Y dar por hecho que todo el mundo lo está haciendo, está poniendo a todo el mundo a ese nivel cuando a lo mejor no corresponde con la realidad. Sin a lo mejor, no corresponde con la realidad. Hay gente que lo hace y gente que no.
Sin dudas. Bueno, muy bien, hasta aquí llegamos entonces con el episodio de hoy. Pueden encontrar toda la información del podcast en nuestro sitio web www.ensincroniapodcast.com y también en nuestro canal de YouTube, y pueden suscribirse a la gacetilla del programa para no perderse ninguna novedad de los episodios. Encontrarán el enlace para la suscripción en nuestros perfiles de Instagram. Hasta la próxima.